صلی علی نبینا صلی علی محمد صلی علی نبینا صلی صلی علی حبیبنا صلی علی محمد. محبت کے نغمات گائیں گے ہم، اخوت کی تانے اڑائیں گے ہم. صلی علی نبینا صلی علی محمد صلی علی نبینا صلی علی محمد صلی علی حبیبنا صلی علی
والله إن محمدًا كردافة، وبه الوصول بسدة السلطان هو فخر كل مطهر ومقدس، وبه يباهي العسكر الروحاني.
صل على صل على محمد صل على نبينا صل على محمد صل على حبيبنا صل على محمد صل على رحيمنا صل على محمد صل على كريمنا صل على محمد صل على نبينا صل على محمد صل على حبيبنا صل على محمد بلغ العلا بكماله كشف الدجى
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
آمين يا رب العالمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The second Caliph, Hazrat Muslim Maud, on one occasion, he was delivering a speech. And as he was delivering this speech, at that time, he was discussing the conditions of the period of Hazrat Umar, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, what took place, what happened in the era of Hazrat Umar, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And he said that all the wars that took place after the death of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, the army of the Muslim was very, very small compared to the opponent's army. And of course, even in Syria, Hazrat Amr bin As had asked for support from Hazrat Umar. And then, of course, it was almost impossible to prepare an army quickly for support, because most of the Arab youth, they were either dead or they had already gone out in the army. So for Hazrat Umar had called different tribes, and then he put the issue before the tribesmen, and then he said, I hope you have some men from your people. And then Hazrat Umar gave an order that some people should be gathered from these people, from a particular group. And then he wrote to Hazrat Abu Ubaidah that I'm sending some people to you. I'm sending about 6,000. 3 will be approaching shortly. And 3,000 I'm sending an Amr bin Adi Karb. So he had 2 groups separated out of the 6,000. And then the second Caliph said that if we send 3,000 youths to fight, they will think that what's wrong with this Khalifa who is sending 3,000 people to fight an army. They'll think that is the Khalifa mad or something. But when Abu Ubaidah received the letter from Hazrat Umar, he said, be happy with the support which is coming from our Khalifa. And also there was the 3,000 which was coming from Abu Karb, and Karb also was receiving 3,000. And of course, Karab received more support. And of course, in the battle which is to be fought to fighting with the sword, to fight an army which is over 100,000, what is the comparison? And it is just because those people, they gave importance to the word of Khalifa and the decision of the Khalifa of the time. And then when Abu Karab was sent 3,000, they did not object. That how can someone fight against 3,000? One person against 3,000. Rather, he welcomed whatever army was sent to him. And then the arrival of the support of the Muslim, the enemy fled, got scared, and then their foot were lifted, and they fled away from the areas simply because of the arrival of the army. And of course, we see that in Spain, in Sicily, this is what the reason why the second Caliph was mentioning this, encouraging the youths of the time how we can deliver the message. There's another battle which was the Battle of Farma, and this is a place in Egypt, which is one of in the delta areas of the River Nile, where it connects with the Mediterranean Sea. And regarding this, it is said that according to the insistence of that Amr bin As, Hazrat Umar sent him 4,000 troops, and then they sent them to Egypt. And then he said that if you get my letter before getting to Egypt, get back. But because it was a condition set by Hazrat Umar, and then he saw that they had already reached at a place called Arish, and then they said, because it was conditional, that we should return back if we received the letter before getting to Egypt. And it is written that when Hazrat Amr bin As reached at Rafah, then he received Hazrat Umar's letter. But he feared to return, and then he did not take the letter from the person who brought the letter. And then when he reached at the place called Rafah and Arish, there was a place in between there. And then he asked for the letter to read it. And then the letter was saying that take the troops with you who are with you. And then he said that, don't you know that this is the place of Egypt? The Amir Mu'min had said that if I receive the letter before getting to Egypt, before getting to Misr, then I should return. And I have received this letter after entering Egypt, after entering Misr. So let's go ahead in the name of Allah. It is also said in another narration that Hazrat Amr bin As was in Palestine. And then he went to Egypt without any permission. And then Hazrat Umar did not like this. And then he wrote him a letter. And Hazrat Amr received the letter when he was in Arish. And he never read the letter until he arrived in Arish. And in that letter, it was written that this is a letter from Umar to Ibn As. Amma ba'd, you have gone to Egypt with your army, and the Romans are very many in number, and you are very few in number against them. And may Allah help you. You should not have taken this army, but if you haven't reached Egypt yet, you should return. Before Farma, before this battle, there were no confrontation. They had not confronted any Roman army, and the Egyptians were welcoming them. It was first in Faram when they were welcomed, and then when the Romans heard about this, of course, we have different narrations, but the fact is it was after Arish that the letter was received by Hazrat Amr bin As. It wasn't any pretext that I'll wait to enter into Misr and then open the letters before. When the Romans learned the news that Hazrat Amr is coming, prepared for a war, and they knew that they cannot bear the seizure for a long time, and they were aware that we're more in number compared to them, and they started to prepare. And they said if we surround them, they can't bear this for some time. And then they surrounded them. And this, of course, Amr bin As was aware of the power of the opponent. And then he had prepared on how to attack. And then he decided that maybe the best thing to do is to keep the seizure. And then they surrounded the city. And then the Muslims, what they decided is we should surround the city on the peripheral and then make sure that the gates are closed. And of course, the Roman army was trying to. There were some sporadic attacks from the Roman army, and one time there was a group which came out of the city and then came to fight the Muslims because the circling was getting harder. They were trying to flee, and then the Muslims, they pursued them. And people, they opened the door to the city. And this was also the way to open the victory. After Farma, Hazrat Amr bin As went to Berbice. And then the Romans tried to stop them, to halt Bilbis. It is about 30 kilometers on the way to Syria. They had stopped the advance of the Muslims so that they don't get to Babylon. Babylon is the name which was being used even in the earlier days. Of course, it was called Babel. They had different names for this city. Well, they wanted to advance, and as Umar bin As said that we should not advance until you receive some orders from me. And then he said that you should send Abu Maryam. And then he sent 2 emissaries. And Hazrat Ammar had a consultation with the Amazon and with the Roman army. And then Hazrat Umar had already told them that you will have victory of Egypt. And once you have your victory, you have to be kind to them, because it is incumbent upon you to be sympathetic to be sympathetic to them, because it is your responsibility. But when the envoys came to negotiate, they said we won't give any decision whether we are to pay jizya or fight, but we shall give you the answer when we come back. And then Hazrat Amr said, I give you 3 days. And then he gave them another further day. And then they went to Makokis, and they presented the case. And then they rejected the suggestion. And then he suggested to fight and to attack the Muslim. And the enemy's army was over 1,200 people. And the Muslims, they captured about 3,000 Roman army, and then the others fled. And the Muslims won this battle. And the historians are all they are in agreement on this point, that the Muslims they won the war. But the dispute is whether it was a long time that took place or it was quick. But it shows you the intelligence of the Muslims and how Muslims were superior. And it is very evident that when the Muslims won, they took the daughter of Makokos, who is Sharmi, and he wanted to marry her in a different place. But she wasn't happy with the marriage. And then she had come to Belbis. And when the Muslims arrested her, Hazrat Amr bin As called the Muslims, and then he recited these verses that هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان. That is there any better reward than kindness, which is reciprocated with kindness? Reciting this, he said that Makokos, he sent a present to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He had a good working relationship with the Holy Prophet. So whatever we have, we should send it to Makokos with the daughter. And then Hazrat Umar bin As with Harumarus, with other ladies and some helpers, with a lot of respect and honor, she was returned to the father. And as they were returning, the slave said, we are surrounded by the Arabs. But she said, don't worry. She said to the slave that I feel more safe here than when I'm in the palace of my father. There's also Dunain. There's another place which was conquered. And after Bilbis, Hazrat Amr bin As advanced towards Iraq. And then from Dunain, when he reached to which is Dunain, this is a place near the Nile, and it is also near between where we have the Suez Canal. Dunain was around these areas, and of course, because of the delta of the Nile, there were so many ships around there. And Dunain was a place which was a very attractive place. And then this was a defensive area. And when the Muslims camped in this area, then the Romans had sent support to make sure that they fortify their places. And after gathering enough intelligence, they measured the threat, and then after learning that the number of the enemy is much more than the number of the Muslims, then they decided not to surround the army, the opponent's army. And then they said, of course, we are receiving support soon. We shall ask for support. And what they did was to stop the supply to the Roman army. But having seen the defeat in Bilbis, the Romans, they were not ready to fight. Thus, in Dunain, after a few sporadic attacks, the opponent, they could attack and then go back into their strongholds. And then the support came from the Khalifa of the Muslims, And when the Muslims learnt about this, rejuvenated the Muslims, and Hazrat Umar sent about 4,000 army, and then every group of 1,000 had a leader. There was Miqdad bin Aswad, Aslam bin Mukhallad, and according to another saying, Hazrat Maslama bin Mukhallad was not the one, but rather was Kharja bin Khuzafa. But Hazrat Umar, when he was sending these troops, he wrote to Hazrat Amr bin As that now you have over 1,200 army and you won't be defeated. And then the Muslims, they advanced, and then they started fighting the army. And Hazrat Amr bin As, with a lot of wisdom, he distributed the groups in 3 groups. One group was sent towards Dunain, towards the river Nile. Another group was pursuing the army. And then as they were fighting, and there was a fierce battle which was going on, then another group of the Muslims had to attack from behind. And then there was the enemy fled to Dunain. And already the Muslim army were camping there, and then they were trapped in between. And of course, we have different narrations regarding the victories that took place. Some people say that before Dunain, it was Fayoum which was conquered first. And many, Ain Shams was also another place where they fought between the Muslims and the Roman army. But before that, there was an 8,000 group of army which was composed of, which was being led by Aslam bin Mukhallad and Miqdad bin Aswad as well. And after that, the Muslims, they conquered the place called Fayoum. And of course, they also conquered another place, Salib and Manuf, quietly. And of course, Babylon was the center. And also regarding the conquest of Babylon, it is said that after the victory, then Hazrat Amr bin As advanced towards Babylon. And the reason of the place called Fustat is the place where Hazrat Umar bin As camped. And when he had ordered the army to move, then there was a pigeon which had nested and in the tent of Hazrat Amr bin As. And then Hazrat Amr bin As said, don't take the tent away. And then this place was known as a place where the Muslim camped. Hazrat Amr bin As, they surrounded the city of Babylon. There was a very strong fort, and then it was surrounded by the waters of the Nile River. And of course, there were also some ships which also used to come through this place. And then the Arabs seized the opportunity to attack this place, but the enemy were not ready. And Hazrat Amr, what he did first was to surround the area first. And then Makokis, who was the leader then, was preparing to fight before the arrival of Hazrat Amr bin As. And then Hazrat Amr bin As, he took a tour of his army, and then he appointed different groups at different places, and then they surrounded the city for over 7 months. And of course, the Roman army, they used to make some sporadic attacks, and then they ran back into the fort. And then Hazrat Amr bin As was also receiving support, and then he sent some people for consultation, that either, and then he suggested to the enemy that either you pay jizya or surrender. You pay jizya, surrender, or we make an agreement with us. And Makokas accepted to pay jizya, to pay tax. But Harkal refused this, and then he exiled Makokas for accepting such an agreement. And then one of the companions went, and then he climbed the fort. And then when they got to top, he went on top, and then other companions went on top, and then they started shouting slogans. And then when the enemy heard the noise, they thought that the Muslims have attacked, and then they opened the gates trying to run away. And then the Muslims also entered into the fort, and then Hazrat Amr gave them the permission to take whatever food they want to take, but they should not take the weaponry. And then Hazrat Amr bin As, he started breaking the domes and some places of the fort were destroyed. But for that, Talut, Karyun were places which were conquered. And also we have a narration regarding how Alexandria was conquered. It is said that Hazrat Umar also gave them the permission to advance to Alexandria. There is a place called Karyum where the Romans fought with the Muslims, and the Muslims won this battle. And after that, there wasn't any confrontation up to Alexandria. And of course, because of the pressure which was being pressed by the Muslims, Makokas wrote to Amr bin As, stopping the advance. And then he said, "You should stay away from Kiptis." Rather, he said, we shall even prepare the roads for you. We shall clear the ways for you, but don't advance. But we can judge the position of Alexandria then, that at the time when the Muslim conquered this city, this was a very important city. After Constantinople, Alexandria was the second biggest. The Byzantines knew very well that if the Muslims conquer Alexandria, then that will be the downfall of the entire Roman Empire. Rather, it was very clear to them that if the Arabs take Alexandria, the entire Romans will be wiped away. And of course, in Constantinople, the king was preparing, but he died in preparation, and the son became the king. But in terms of defense, Iskandria was very strategic. Hazrat Umar wrote to them. He wrote to the Muslims. He said, "Why have you spent so long? Maybe you have become so comfortable." And then Hazrat Umar bin As, when he received a letter from Hazrat Umar spotting out these points that maybe you have become very comfortable and then complacent. Why is it that you haven't conquered these areas? And then Hazrat Amr bin As said that take the news to Hazrat Umar, and then the emissary took the message to Hazrat Umar, and because it was evening, it was getting late in the night, it was getting late, getting to night time, he went to the mosque, and then he talked to one of the slaves that go and tell Hazrat Umar that we have conquered these areas in Egypt. And when Hazrat Umar received the news of victory of the Muslims in Egypt, then Hazrat Umar fell in prostration, and then announcement was made that Salatu Jami'ah, and the news was spread to the Muslims. And then the envoy was asked, Hazrat Umar asked him, why didn't you come straight to me? And then he said, I thought you are resting. And then he said, if you think I was resting, then who will be responsible for looking after the community? Of course, Hazrat Umar responded with a letter to Hazrat Amr bin As that you give them the choice that they become Muslims, and if they become Muslims, they will be accorded the same rights as Muslims have. Otherwise, if they don't, then they have to give jizya. And when this was read to the people, most of them, they accepted Islam, and the Muslims were reciting Allah Akbar in excitement. There's also a narration of how Alexandria was burnt. Mostly the Christian writers, they write and say that it was on the command of Hazrat Umar that Alexandria was burnt. And they say that many books were burnt, and the fire kept on burning for 6 months. And of course, this is lies, because the leader of the Muslims, of course, the leader of Muslim was Hazrat Umar, and he was aware that the Holy Prophet had already said that utlubul ilma and utlubul ilma walau bisin, and that it is incumbent upon Muslims to acquire knowledge, even if it requires you to go to China, and it is the duty of every Muslim to acquire knowledge. They were very aware of this. Then how can you allege that the Muslims who are aware of this, they burnt the books, they burnt the books which contained knowledge? And many have refuted this. And it is very clear that this is a very concocted story regarding the burning of the books in Alexandria. Someone writing in the book regarding Hazrat Umar, one historian writes that Abu Falj Malti was the first one to concoct this story. It comes in history. It is in Mukhtasar Dur. It is Baras was born in the 1200s, and Nahwi, who was a Kipt priest, of course, he was a Christian, And then afterwards, he rejected the idea, the doctrine of Trinity. And after that, he had asked for some books. And then he said, I will only get some knowledge from Hazrat Umar first. But anyway, this is a concrete story, but I'll narrate it anyway. And then he said that the books you are asking for, if they're in accordance with the book of God, then it's okay. Otherwise, if they are not in accordance to the word of God, then there is no value in any of these books which they are asking for. Hazrat Amr bin As started banning the books, and according to this narration, it is found in Ibn Kasir. It is not in Tibri. It is not in Abdul Hakam, and Ibn Khaldun doesn't mention this. It is only Abu Fajr in the 13th year of Hijrah wrote this. And Professor Butler, who is a Greek, he made a research regarding the Greeks. And then even he wasn't alive when the library was burnt. And Joanna, who was alive in the 6th year of 6th century, where he had already even passed away. He was dead. He wasn't even alive, because the story which is being given is of a person who was dead already. And Hassan in Ibrahim, to prove that this was wrong, he writes in one of his journals regarding Ibn bin As, which is also regarding the library of Alexandria. He said there wasn't even the library wasn't there, because Julius Caesar it is Julius Caesar who had already burnt the libraries of Alexandria. And Professor Butler further writes that regarding Abu Fajr, it has no legs, because if it was to burn the books, it doesn't take 6 months to burn the books. Of course, if it took 6 months, then even some could have been stolen before they were burnt. But Gibbon writes regarding this that other narrations, they're against this. They're not in full conformity with this narrative, because in terms of philosophy, in terms of poetry, the Muslims they could take benefit of these kind of books. And of course, the Muslims were not allowed even to destroy their places of worship. Then how can we think that the Amir al-Mu'mineen could give an order to burn the books, to burn the library? And in Brahina Ahmadiyya, the Prince Messiah ﷺ has answered this. And then he said that Holiness and Amr bin As, who was the leader of the army, he had written to the second Caliph regarding the library. And then he said, regarding this, what that people say that they were burnt, and then the Prince Messiah said that it is a concoction of the priests, otherwise it is impossible to happen from the Muslims. And then Khalifa Awal writes and said Khalifa of course, in history, there is nowhere where we are told that the books were banned by the Muslims. If it was allowed to ban, they would ban other books for the idol worshippers, for those who were worshipping other gods. But the Muslims never banned those books. But furthermore, he says that if it was okay to ban other books, and it was a practice of the Muslims, then the Greek philosophy, the poetry would not even appear in any of the Arab books. And the second Caliph is writing that if it was okay that how many books were burnt here in India. Of course, Islam was ruling in this country for so many years. Did they ban any books here? Nothing was burnt by the Muslims, though they remain leaders within India. The second Caliph writes that they were also in Markundi or other books and all other religious books which are very sacred books, and they still survive and they still have them up to date. And even in any books, it is not mentioned anywhere, even those which were translated. Then why should it be thought that the Muslims are such people who even ban knowledge? And Hazrat Abdul Karim Sahib wrote a note, and then he said that before the proper investigation were made regarding this, then there was this allegation against the Muslims that they burnt the books. But there's very few people who object now to this, that the Muslim never burnt the books. But because we have no clear writing and we don't have any clear historic authentic book, then we cannot take this to be an incident that took place. But there are so many books which were written by other Christians and which also defy this narrative. And of course, there were some books which were burnt in the war. There's another book where it is written regarding the life of Caesar, and it is said that it was Caesar who was burning his boats, and then this fire kept on burning, and then it also burnt part of the library in Alexandria. And of course, there's been a lot of research that it is not acceptable that Hazrat Umar said that if those books are against the book of God, you should burn them. This is not found anywhere that it was an order given by Hazrat Umar bin Khattab. Some of them, they take it to have been a word of Cardinal Germain. Cardinal Germanis is the one who made this story. Furthermore, another Dr. Leitner wrote in his book in Saninul Islam, he has also refuted this. William Draper is also written and also has also refuted this story and this narrative. And he has written that in reality these books were burnt by Julius Caesar during the war with the Caesar. But if it did happen, then what we have to cry upon was that there were some books which were burnt when there were very many books which were burnt after the Muslims they were driven out of Spain. That's what we should cry upon. Conflict of religions and science. There is a book which we find regarding this. Anyway, regarding the library and what took place, I was trying to give different sayings and what is being written regarding this. And after the conquest in Egypt, Hazrat Amr bin As advanced towards Jordan. And because the army were still camped in Egypt, there was a place between Alexandria which is called Warqa. And in this Warqa, it was populated by non-Muslims. And they advanced, Hazrat Amr bin As advanced toward this place. And it was populated by non-Muslim people, and they suggested to have a treaty with them. And the people used to go to the leader of Misr, and they used to get some benefits from these. And these people, they were very, very simple. They led a very simple life, and there wasn't any chaos. And then Hazrat Amr bin As, he just went through this place, and then he advanced to another place where the people had the non-Muslim had camped. And when the enemy learnt about the advance of the Muslim army, they locked themselves in the city, and the Muslim could not take it took about a month, and the Muslims surrounded the city for a month. And there wasn't any space enough between the sea and the city. Then they attacked from this side, and then when the Muslims started shouting their slogans, the enemy had no choice but only to take the route through the sea. And of course, the Muslims, they took a lot of bounty. They took whatever the property was left behind by the enemy. Hazrat Amr bin As wanted to accomplish this conquest, and then after that, after conquering all the areas, would write to Hazrat Umar. And after that, after the conquest of these areas, he wrote, and Hazrat Umar, and Hazrat Umar did not send any support until he was asked. Of course, during the time of Hazrat Umar, we see and realize that the borders of Muslims, the Muslim state extended towards Africa, and also towards Armenia, and further to the east towards India and also other areas. And also Nuba is another place. And the empire extended to different distant places during the time of Hazrat Umar. The whole area which was under Muslims under the time of Hazrat Umar was quite big, was quite huge area. And of course, or the citizens which were living under the rule of Muslims, they lived in peace, and also there was a lot of civilization. And of course, they respected and honored the lives of the subjects who were under the rule of Muslims. Hazrat Muslim Maud writes regarding this that of course everything in life takes a gradual process to success or to accomplishment. We don't see that even in the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, not all the companions offered the Tahajjud prayers, but slowly and steadily they started adopting the good habits of even praying and also getting rid of the bad habits. We find that the Holy Prophet ﷺ might have woken up during the war, but we see that even in the time of Hazrat Omar, even in war, they woke up for Tahajjud. And then, even when they were planning to attack the Muslims, the enemy was saying that it's futile to attack the Muslim at night because they are even awake at night. There's no time for them to sleep and rest. So we find that the Muslims, they adopted these virtues slowly and gradually. Furthermore, the second Caliph writes that Muslims, they were not bloodthirsty. They also waited for help. And Islam doesn't say that when someone slaps you, then you slap back. Or someone attacks you, you don't attack back. Rather, we find that the proof for these wars, they had to defend Islam. They had to fight the enemy. But they were not cruel. And Hazrat Umar wasn't cruel. Hazrat Uthman also wasn't cruel. Rather, they were very kind and sympathetic to those subjects they conquered. Of course, it would have been saying that if nobody say to the Muslims that we should take revenge because of what happened before. And because we find that these wars which are being fought by the Christians, they never say that, okay, ask for forgiveness and then we will let you free. Rather, the Muslim fought because when Caesar attacked, the Muslim also had to fight against these attackers. But from the moral point of view, Hazrat Umar could have said that because it is we've been attacked, we had to defend ourselves. And Hazrat Umar, even in his time, he did not even take revenge. And he did not tell them that now we forgive you. Rather, he was ready also to defend Islam, and also fought and defended Islam and continued with the fighting, with the defense. And the second Caliph asked that what was the reason? Why did the leaders had to stand to put up the resistance? And then he said that until you keep the enemy at bay, at hold, they will continue to attack you. That's why they continued to defend and fight against these enemies. Hazrat Umar knew very well that if you let Caesar attack and then overcome the area, then the Muslims will be overrun. And then God wished that the Muslims should have a spirit of defense. And this was said by the second Caliph in one of his sermons. And furthermore, the second Caliph said, advising the community and the Jamaat, saying that troubles come. We have to go through troubles so that we revive our spirituality. And you should remember, these troubles, they bring us closer to God, and they also become the means to success. But if we become afraid, and then we run away, and then we don't focus on advancing and facing the problems, then there can't be any progress. There can't be victory. And of course, even if the troubles go away, we still have to keep remembering God. And nowadays we have to remember God, and we also have to look upon advancing in spirituality. Furthermore, the second Caliph said that if we didn't understand this, then we won't understand anything. This is also which we need to understand even in this time, in this day and age.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh, wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayh, wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر.
بمطلع على أسرار بالي بعالم عيبتي في كل حال بمطلع على أسرار بالي بعالم عيبتي في كل حال بوجه قد رأى أعشار قلبي بمستمع لصرخي في الليالي بوجه قد رأى أعشار قلبي، بمستمع لصرخي في الليالي. لقد أرسلت من رب كريم رحيم عند طوفان الضلال، فلا تقف الظنون بغير علم، وخف أخذ المحاسب ذي الجلال. ترى آيات صدقي ثم تنسى، لحاك الله ما لك لا تبالي. تعال إلى الهدى ذلا خضوعا، إلى ما تكتسي ثوب الدلال. وإن ناضلتني فترى سهامي، ومثلي لا يفر من النضال. سهامي لا تطيش بوقت حرب، وسيفي لا يغادر في القتال. فإن حربا فحرب مثل نار، وإن سلم فسلم كالزلال. فإن حربا فحرب مثل نار، وإن سلم فسلم كالزلال. وحربي بالدلائل لا السهام، وقولي لهذم شاج القذال. هداني خالقي نهجا قويما، ورباني بأنواع النوال. لقد أعطيت أسرار السرائر، فسل إن شئت من نوع السؤال. رأيت بفضل ربي سبل ربي، وإن كانت أدق من الهلال. وكم سر أراني نور ربي، وآيات على صدق المقال. لفاظات الموائد كان أكلي، وصرت اليوم مطعام الأهالي. أزيد بفضله يوما فيوما، وأصلي قلب منتظر الوبال. ألا يا حاسدي خف قهر ربي، وما آلوك نصحا في المقال. تركنا هذه الدنيا لوجه وآثرنا الجمال على الجمال. فلا تنظر إلى زحف فإني نظمت قصيدتي بالارتجال. فلا تنظر إلى زحف فإني نظمت قصيدتي بالارتجال.
The next program on today's schedule is an English discussion about the relationship between Islam and science.
Ibn Adama, alu malu male. Ibn Adama, wa jannatu jannati. Ibn Adama, alu malu male. Ibn Adama, wa jannatu jannati.
إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to yet another edition of the program Islam and Science. In this program, we discuss issues with connections, the interconnections and disconnections between Islam and science. There are many who have held and continue to hold the view that Islam is at loggerheads with science, but little did they know that science actually emanated from Islam. Today, our topic for discussion is nuclear holocaust. This is one of the greatest prophecies of the Holy Quran to the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is about the discovery of the atom and its effect on the world. Today, I have two renowned Islamic scholars from the Jamaat to help me do this discussion. In the studio, we have to my immediate left, Dr. Abdullah Munir Dawood of the Ghana Atomic Energy. And then next to him is Movi Muhammad Ishaq Opoku, who is a missionary of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat in Ghana. Gentlemen, Assalamu Alaikum and welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Doc, let me ask you the basic question. We are looking at nuclear holocaust. What is an atom? The basic question that any ordinary person will ask. What is an atom?
Thank you very much for the question. An atom can simply be described or defined as the smallest unit of any entity, what we call matter. But its discovery actually goes a very long way back into ancient times, when a philosopher from Greek known as Democritus, he was, together with his teacher, first postulated the atomic theory. And in their theory, they described the atom as an indivisible element. So based on this, later on, John Dalton actually adopted this theory, and he made a further study and in turn gave an advanced theory of the atom, where he postulated that matter composed of atoms of weight, of different weights, and these atoms can be combined based on the ratios of their weight. Now, fast forward, a major advance on the atom was made by another renowned scientist by name J.J. Thomson. He actually further discovered a subatomic particle using an experiment which is well known in the annal of science as the cathode ray tube experiment. During this experiment, he discovered the electron, and we have come to know that the electron is a subatomic particle. Okay. So the atom, which has been described as the smallest, tiniest particle, is also composed of subatomic units. Okay. And as we move on, we will come to know that the core of the atom, which is known as the nucleus, is a storehouse of energy or power, which out of it, the nuclear technology, the nuclear bombs, the nuclear energy, all are driven or taken out of. Okay. So if you ask me, this is, in one full, what the atom is.
Okay, Doc, thank you very much. Murabi, we know that obviously this is a very great discovery that has been done by the scientists. But let me ask you, did Islam predict this? Did Islam predict something like this?
Yes, please. Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. You see, the Holy Quran has made mention of it. And, during the time of the revelation of the Holy Quran, the understanding of the Holy Quran was beyond the comprehension of the people at that time. Okay. You see, the Holy Quran has made mention of some tiny, insignificant particles that are described as storehouses for immense energy, okay? So as if the hell is locked up in them.
That is in respect to what Dr.
Exactly what he said. Okay. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in Holy Quran chapter 104, that is Surah Al-Humaza, that wailun likulli humazatin lumaza, that woe unto every backbiter, slanderer, the one who amasses wealth, the one who amasses his wealth and counts it time after time. Yahsabu anna malahu akhlada. And he thinks that his wealth would make him immortal. Because of his wealth, he would never die. You see, kalla, Allah says, kalla la yumbazanna fil hutama. He said, nay, he would surely be thrown into al-hutama. Now, the word al-hutama here, he says, wama adraka mal-hutama. What would make thee know what the al-hutama is? What would make thee know what al-hutama is? Narullahi al-muqada. He said, it is the kindled fire of Allah. Okay, it is Allah's fire which has been fueled. Allati tattali'u al-afida, which will close up on the hearts. Okay, now the word al-hutama, let's base our discussion there. Okay. You see, many commentators of the Holy Quran have failed in vivid explanation or commenting on this word al-hutama. The fourth successor of the founder of the Ahmadiyya community, that is Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad of blessed memory, rahimahullah, has explained that the word al-hutama is of two meanings. Okay, Arabic lexicons have given two basic meanings of al-hutama, and they say that it is derived from the word hatama and hitma. Now, hatama means to crush something or grind something into its minutest, particle. Okay. And then hitma also means the minutest particle of something, which means that the end result of hatama is hitma. Okay. Now, if Allah Almighty says in the Holy Quran that the people would be thrown into, Allah has described some specific people that they would be punished by this. People of that time could not understand, they could not perceive what kind of minutest particle it is that would close up on the hearts of the people. And now it has been discovered, yet the Holy Quran had already mentioned it. Okay, so that is it.
Okay, Doc, in your earlier submission, you mentioned something like nuclear bomb, then atomic energy. Can you take us through? Can you explain how an atomic energy, how it is formed, and atomic bomb, how does it explode?
Yeah, as I rightly mentioned earlier, the atom composed of subatomic units, okay? And one of these units is the core component of the atom itself, known as the nucleus. In the nucleus of the atom, there are two particles there, subatomic particles there. The proton, which is having a positive charge on it, and then we have the neutron, which is neutral. It doesn't have any charge on it. Now, the nucleus of the atom is so much packed with energy, yet at the normal state, when nothing happens, this energy are just locked up over there. Okay. The only time we can extract or extract this energy is when we impact the nucleus and split it open. Okay. So it is in this process that the energy is now extracted. So for instance, in the nuclear industry, we look at what and how nuclear energy is extracted. There is the need for a resource material, and in this case, it is a radioactive material, which is an atom. Okay. Now, these radioactive materials are naturally unstable materials, and they are explosive in nature, naturally.
Are they the small particles that the Holy Quran spoke about?
Yeah, because when you take any matter, we say that any matter composed of atoms, or is made up of atoms. So for instance, if you take a uranium material, okay, the uranium is made up of atoms. And so our focus is on the atoms, the atom uranium, for instance. Now, in many nuclear industries, uranium is used as the raw material or the fuel, okay, for the energy, for the extraction of the energy. And it is uranium that is used because uranium happens to have the largest surface area of nucleus because of its atomic number, okay. So this uranium is now impacted by a neutron, and that impact causes the splitting of the uranium. When the uranium is splitted, or we call it the nucleus or the nuclei of the uranium is splitted, more neutrons are produced. More neutrons produced continue to hit other atoms, and more neutrons produced. So within a very short time, there is what we call a chain of reaction is forming. So this chain of reaction now leads to emission of energy, which is so immense that this energy, we can use it for different purposes. But how does the energy now turn into, let's say, electric power? The energy that comes as a result of the chain reaction is in a form of heat. Okay, it's heat energy. This heat energy can be extracted and be used to, for instance, boil water. So in the nuclear industry, we have a setup known as the reactor. The nuclear reactor has a turbine. So the turbine is placed in a large pool of water. So what the raw material does is that when the fission reaction, which is the reaction causing the splitting of the atom, occurs, the energy it releases is used to boil that pool of water. And if a heat is boiling, that large pool of water, you can imagine the quantum, the amount of the heat, the intensity of the heat. This heat this pool of water is boiled and it generates steam. Now this steam is what is used to turn the turbine of the reactor in the end, producing electric power.
Okay.
So we term that power nuclear power because the raw material is of nuclear material.
Okay. So actually you can get electricity out of
Yes.
Okay.
And it is one of the sustainable source of electric power because it is also environmental friendly because it does not emit carbon, which is causing so much harm to our environment. Nowadays we talk about climate change. Climate change is hugely because of greenhouse gas emission, and carbon or methane are the chief of this.
So Doc, let me still stay with you. I want you to tell me how does the atomic bomb occur?
Formation of the atomic bomb.
And how does it explode? And then what is the extent of damage, if I should ask?
Yeah, let's all understand that bombs can be produced by a lot of materials, organic and inorganic. Okay, we have chemical bombs. If you have heard in the news the use of sarin, the use of mustard gas, these are chemicals that are so dangerous that when you use them to produce a bomb, it becomes a weapon of mass destruction. And so there is a declaration on this one. Okay, so it is that when a bomb is produced using a nuclear material or a radioactive material, that bomb becomes a nuclear bomb. And what makes it dangerous is because of the radioactivity of the nuclear material. Radioactivity, you can simply look at it as, let's say, the concentration. If concentration is still a difficult word to understand, let's say, from the layman's point of view, let's term it as the capability to destroy. Okay, that is the activity of the radioactive material. Their lifespan is so much, so immense. For instance, uranium, which is used as a fuel for producing nuclear power, and which is also the main thing that when there is a way of doing it that you use it as a nuclear bomb, you call it enriching the uranium. Now, when a uranium is enriched, you remember that uranium-235, for instance, has a lifespan or a half-life, let's say, a half-life of 700 million years. It means that the time it will take about 700 million years for only the half of its destruction capability to be reduced or to be exhausted.
Wow.
So that is why there is a regulation on nuclear bomb and the nuclear energy and all that, because it is through this process that people with malicious intent will now go to the extent of using the uranium to produce bomb. Okay. And when the bomb is finally produced, a little trigger will cause explosion, like in any other instances of bombs. Now, when the explosion occurs, what happens is that it's placed the radioactive material into the atmosphere. Okay. And now this radioactive material would be absorbed by people. Okay. With the destruction nature of radioactive material is that it burns, but it doesn't burn like fire. It attacks your inner organs and destroy them.
Okay, Doc, I will still stick with you because your explanation is very interesting. Apart from the atomic bomb, what other inventions have come out of the atom? And then when you finish that, I want you to tell me more in case there's an atomic bomb explosion. What is the extent of damage that we are likely to witness?
Yeah, in fact, there are a lot of civil benefits from the atom. Nowadays, with conjunction or in conjunction with the International Atomic Energy Agency, there is a phrase that we call atom for civil purpose. This means that the radiation emanating from radioactive materials can actually be used in different fields of life. In the agriculture industry, we use it to kill pests, and we use it also to expand or increase the shelf life of crops that are produced. There are even technologies that are used to produce crops of different varieties based on nuclear technology. Now, when we come to the civil industries like the civil construction industry, the building of dams, building of huge structures and all that, they use radioactive or nuclear technology to really check the thickness of concrete, the thickness, and then the breaks, if there are, to detect the breaks in concrete materials. When you go to the hospital, which is very important, the use of MRI, the use of X-rays, for instance, all these are radioactive sources that are used to help boost medication in the hospitals and so on and so forth. We can't exhaust all of them.
But I still want you to, because we have come to know nuclear energy to be, in quote, negative. We know the nuclear bombs and all that, and we know the destruction it is causing. So I want you to just hammer on it, the distractions, that the likelihood that there's an atomic bomb.
Yeah, if there is atomic bomb, or let's say any nuclear explosion in general, like I said earlier on, there will be emission of radioactive materials and radiation. Now, when you get into contact with radiation, like I mentioned earlier on, it can cause skin burn. These are just on the surface. It causes cancer, okay? And then it can also, if there is a pregnant woman, it can destroy the fetus. Okay. So these are some of the, because these things, we have them in two types. We have what we call the probabilistic effect, and then we have the deterministic effect. The probabilistic effect, normally we see them in the future, in the case of cancer, for instance. But the deterministic effects are like the burns that happen immediately when one is exposed to radiation. So these are some of the effects that we can point.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's come to you, Morabi. So in all of this, the discussions we've had, the negative aspects and all of this, is there any reference to this that we are discussing about in the Holy Quran?
Yes, please. This has been mentioned in the Holy Quran. You see, the Holy Quran has already predicted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Entaliku ila ma kuntum bihi tukazzibun." He says, go forth, go, move towards that which you have been denying, or that which you deny. Intaliku ila zillin zi salasi shu'ab. He said, move towards the shadow which has 3 sections. La zalilin wala yugni min al-lahab. It has no shade, and it can provide no protection against the flame. You see, he said, "Intaliku ila ma kuntum bihi tukazzibun, intaliku ila zillin zi salasi shu'ab, la zalilin wala yugni min al-lahab." Then Allah again says, "Innaha tarmi bi shararin kal qasr." He says, surely it does throw sparks. You see, sparks of fire, just like a castle. You see, innaha tarmi bi shararin kal qasr ka'annahu jimalatun sufur. He says, as if it's like a husky camel. See, so this is exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made mention of. Now, the phrase "move towards" signifies that a time will come that mankind will encounter such a cloud that would not be able to provide shade. Okay? Neither can there be any protection for man against such a cloud. And this is exactly what we are experiencing today, as he explained, my brother explained.
Okay, thank you. Doc, recently there have been proliferation and use of such bombs that we are talking about, and we have also witnessed the destruction that it is causing to other nations, and people are dying as a result of this. Because of that, many have also tend to blame the scientists, that it is the scientists who have developed, invented this, and they are using it to cause destruction and all that. So let me ask you, will you agree for us to blame the scientists for this that is happening?
This is quite a dicey question, but if to tell you, we cannot blame the scientists alone in isolation, because what the scientist does is to study, and out of their findings, they put out the knowledge out there, and others use the knowledge to also do other things. So if you want to blame the scientists, then what we are saying is that we have to blame everything the scientist discovers. But we all know that the scientists, without any malicious intent, you know, they do these discoveries, or they put out these discoveries for benefit of mankind. But it is how people use them, how people apply them, that tell whether we are using it the appropriate way or in a way to cause injury to people. So yes, you can blame the scientists to some extent, but mostly, I think it is the generality of the people. It is our moral, integrity that is in question over here. Because, you see, when you look at the wars happening around the world, it is a war between the superpowers and the weak ones, and between the superpowers themselves. What is it? It's all about wealth amassing. It's all about who is more powerful. And in the end, it is the people who suffer. So you cannot blame the scientists, but you can blame everybody, including the world superpower leaders and so on and so forth.
I know of the recent bomb at Japan. Are you privy to, and can you...
I think you are talking of the Fukushima.
Exactly.
Fukushima happened in one of the nuclear installations in Japan, precisely Fukushima. And we know in the entire life of nuclear plants, there has been 3 major accidents or incidents radiologically. We have the Chernobyl, we have the Mile 3 Island in the United States, and then we have the Fukushima. Yes, I mean, accident happens every day, and outside the nuclear industry, we have a lot of accidents happening. And if you look at the amount of life, the destruction made by other plants, let's say we can cite example of the coal plant, for instance. We can cite example of the mining industrial plants. The kind of lives that are lost in these plants, in these industries, is nowhere near to accidents occurring in the nuclear industry, because we have a very rigorous and robust system that nowadays, especially with the advance in technology, when there is a nuclear explosion, there is a way of containing the radiation such that it will not get to the people, or the larger majority of the people. Okay. Only maybe a couple of people can be affected. Yeah.
Okay, so on the effect, I want you to give me more examples of the effects of these atomic bomb explosions in recent times that are deliberately used to deter others.
Yeah, what comes to mind quickly is the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the United States force. In that bombs, they actually use nuclear bomb, and they bombed 2 cities of Japan known as Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And the consequence of this thing